RPN is not responsible for the views, actions, statements, or opinions of its guests, advertisers, or even its viewers. The information contained in this program is not to be confused with medical or legal advice. An appearance on this platform is not necessarily an endorsement, but as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show. Good evening, everyone. And of course, welcome back to another very exciting episode of Red Pill News Live. Thank you very much for joining us, everyone. Hope you're having a lovely day. Well, it seems like despite the fact Eric Swalwell is dropping out of the race, dropping out of Congress, and probably getting a divorce, things are not getting any better for him. In fact, they continue to get worse by the minute. And my goodness, do we have some updates for you today? Eric Swalwell has a minor problem. Well, he has multiple problems, and they're actually fairly large, but I'm being cute with my language. If you guys wouldn't mind, do me a favor, please hit that like button. You can also help us out by sharing the show. And of course, your comments in the chat really do make a difference. Of course, Eric Swalwell isn't the only thing we're going to be talking about today. A couple of other members of Congress seem to have similar problems to Eric Swalwell. So much more. All right, so if you are ready to rumble, then I need you to sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn, because we're getting into it right after this. Recently, the U.S. Department of Energy announced $2.7 billion in contracts to restore domestic uranium enrichment capabilities. This isn't just government spending, it's a declaration of intent, because America needs uranium, domestic uranium, and it needs it now. So here's the reality. The U.S. consumes over 50 million pounds of uranium every single year, but we produce less than 1 million pounds domestically. Obviously, that leaves America 98% dependent on foreign suppliers for our supply. It's a critical vulnerability for national security, power generation, and advanced weapons systems. With Russia controlling much of the global enrichment capacity and escalating tensions in Iran threatening nuclear supply, the stakes could not be higher, which is why the White House has made it crystal clear. America must develop its own supply chain. And this is where Kirkstone Metals comes in. They trade under KSM in Canada and KSMCF in the US. They've got decades of uranium and junior mining expertise, and Kirkstone's leadership team knows how to turn exploration projects into real value. But the question is, can they do it again? Kirkstone controls two 100% owned uranium projects strategically located in the Athabasca Basin. This is the richest uranium district on the planet. Same area, same world-class neighborhood, and at their flagship Key Lake project, drilling has already hit high-grade uranium right near the surface, but the team truly believes the real prize lies deep underground. So using a playbook based on the decade's biggest discoveries, they're hunting the massive source below. So let's talk about the Athabasca Basin. It's home to multi-billion-dollar names like NextGen Energy and Denison Mines, but the real upside, it's often the junior explorers that are operating right next door. The Athabasca Basin has delivered over 20% of the world's uranium discoveries, with an estimated $200 to $300 billion worth of uranium identified in the ground, and yet Kirkstone is still sitting at a market cap below $12 million. That's an enormous disconnect between what's found in this district and how some companies are valued today. On January 14th, the U.S. administration reinforced their commitment to domestic energy security, invoking Section 232 via an executive order. It's a formal declaration of resource independence, and it goes beyond support. It's a mandate. Energy security is now national security. and the U.S. government is deploying its full fiscal and regulatory tools to secure the nuclear fuel cycle in North America. Kirkstone Metals, trading as KSMCF in the U.S. and KSM in Canada, is strategically positioned to capitalize on this shift. Now, uranium prices have surged, and some analysts project prices could exceed $100 per pound by 2026 as demand outpaces supply. Federal momentum has already begun to translate into dollars on the ground, including billions in planned funding for domestic uranium enrichment capacity. The sector is entering one of its most active drilling seasons in years, and with its flagship drill program approved, Kirkstone has exploration underway, and they're advancing with a focus on execution. Some companies operating in the district are valued at over $10 billion, and with the U.S. pushing for domestic uranium, Kirkstone could potentially become a leading beneficiary of the reshoring mandate. So if you want to learn more about this critical mineral story and about a team that has delivered big results in the past, check out the link in the description. And a very special thanks to Kirkstone Metals for making today's video possible. All right, gang, welcome back. And I just realized my pilled stream was not working. Somebody popped into the chat over here on Rumble and let me know. I rebooted it. It should be going now, but I would appreciate it if people over there on the pilled chat would let me know so that I am fully aware. And Moon Baby just sent a gold pill, so okay, definitely looks like it's working. Thank you so much for the cookie. She says, thanks for the news, Zach. Really do appreciate it. But now it would appear that my main stream is also starting to stutter, so give me just a second, and I will see about getting that rebooted as well. Okay. God dang it, why is that happening? Okay. All right, everything appears to be good now. Jeez, oh, Pete. So we can't go 24 hours without something going to shit. All right, well, listen, guys, maybe that's because I'm going to be bringing the heat today and the deep state knows it. I'm going to start out today with a story that I think you guys are probably going to resonate with. We've talked about the Amnesty Act, also known as the Dignity Act, also known as the Dignitad Act. This, as we have talked about, is a slap in the face to natural-born American citizens and naturalized American citizens alike. One of the things that I've suggested we need is primary contests for those members of Congress who would support such an amnesty bill. And Ryan James Gurderski, who is part of the 1776 Project, has also just started a super PAC to do just that. He says GOP voters have demanded that politicians get serious about the border, mass deportation, and restrictions on immigration. The Dignity Act is a step too far, so he's launching a new super PAC to support primary challenges to pro-amnesty Republicans. You can find out more by going to homelandpac.com, but let's go ahead and watch the introductory video from the Homeland PAC directly.
Republican voters demanded mass deportation. They said they would stand with President Trump and secure the border. Then they got to Congress and stabbed us in the back. Enough. Homeland PAC is the first super PAC dedicated to ending the career of every Republican who supports amnesty and sells out the American people on immigration. If you vote with the Open Borders lobby, if you block deportations, if you refuse to secure the border, we will primary you, expose you, and defeat you. You made the promise. Now keep it, or lose your seat.
All right, so I personally am looking
Republican voters demanded mass deportation.
Whether or not this has an effect. I may think that our elections are rigged. I may think that our elections are fake and gay. But I also believe that there are some elections that actually deliver real results based upon the way people vote. This is one of the reasons that I personally believe in the concept of voting. I think for myself, it is necessary to have a record of my vote on file. And I also believe that if I don't vote, it's likely somebody else is going to vote in my place. So I will continue to fight for election security. I will continue to fight for good representation, and I will continue to do everything I possibly can to primary the F out of people who support things like amnesty for illegal aliens. Now, yesterday I told you the shocking number of murders that take place every single year at the hands of aliens, whether they're illegal or natural, or if they are legal immigrants as well. illegal immigrants kill an overwhelming number of American citizens. Unfortunately, in Georgia, we just had a situation where an immigrant, I'm not exactly certain about his status, he recently was found to be responsible for a series of murders. Those murders were of American women. His name is Ola Koltakin Adan Abel. So you can guess he was probably not born here in the United States of America. Unfortunately, now 3 women are dead. These seem to be completely random shootings. And they have also found he is responsible for the death of yet another woman outside of this.
Police say 26-year-old Ola Olakatan Adon Ado is the man behind 3 different shootings in DeKalb County. 2 women are dead. 1 man is in critical condition.
In Brookhaven, he's been charged with aggravated assault and possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony. What we know now is that this individual was involved in an incident in DeKalb County, followed by an incident in Brookhaven, and later another incident in DeKalb County.
So here's the timeline. It all started around 12:50 Monday morning when DeKalb County police found a woman shot multiple times outside the Checkers on Wesley Chapel Road. She died from her injuries. Then almost 2 hours later, Brookhaven police responded to this Kroger on Peachtree Road to a 49-year-old man shot multiple times while sleeping outside the shopping center. He's in critical condition. And the third shooting happened 4 hours later around 6:50 on Battle Forest Drive. DeKalb County police found 40-year-old Lauren Bullish shot and stabbed. She died. Fox 5 talked to a witness at the scene.
I looked across the street. It was a lady laying down and a man over her. So I'm running, and my daughter's like, no. I get back because we heard shooting, but my instinct was to try to do what I could do to help her. And so after that, we kind of look at each other. He took off going up the street.
Now, he didn't just shoot this woman who was running, minding her own business. He shot Lauren Bullis, a 40-year-old woman, resident of Atlanta, Georgia, 6 times in the face. And then he proceeded to stab her multiple times. She was walking her dog. I have no idea if her dog is okay. But this man also had a habit of sexually assaulting the women that he killed. So this, from my perspective, is an excellent argument as to why we simply cannot afford to allow these people to stick around. Now, there actually is another tweet that I meant to pull up, and I don't believe that I actually have it prepared. I bookmarked it earlier, and here it is, right here. All right. New tab. Boom. Now, it's not just illegal immigration that I have a problem with. I think that legal immigration is out of control as well. And this is one of the things that President Trump has addressed, and I think he's done a fairly good job of it. In fact, I think he's done an incredible job. He's done more than anybody else who came before him. And the Cato Institute is one of those non-governmental organization think tanks who is not a fan of President Trump, and they prepared these numbers on the drop in legal immigration since President Trump came back into office. And by my perspective, instead of making a successful attack against him, they have instead endorsed his policies, and anybody who's been paying attention would agree with me. So they're upset because since President Trump came back, the numbers of H-1B visas that have been issued abroad have been cut by 90%. Now, that is since President Trump instituted the new $100,000 fee. Overall, H-1B visas are down 25%, but 90% since this $100,000 fee has been tacked on. That tells us what those numbers are going to look like in the future. International student visas, those are down by 40%. K visas, these are the visas that are attained by spouses and fiancés. These are down by 65%. The refugee program, oftentimes which leads to a major uptick in criminality and lawlessness in the areas where these refugees are settled. That is down by 90%. And asylum requests at ports of entry are down by 99.9%, nearly completely being taken off the board. Now, Meanwhile, 43% of young American college graduates, those are Americans graduating college between the age of 22 and 27, are all underemployed. It means that they cannot get jobs in the fields that they actually were educated in. So they're working at Starbucks. They're picking up babysitting jobs. Maybe they're doing nanny stuff. Maybe they're working at the local strip mall. How long is that going to last? With all of these immigrants no longer being given access to our country to take jobs from American citizens, hopefully that number, 43%, will continue to drop as more opportunities are opened and as these people decide to stay in their home countries and do what they can to make their own nation great rather than coming to the United States of America and taking opportunities that, by my estimation, should be given to citizens of this nation. So I would just wanted to give a big shout out to President Trump for being able to accomplish that in such a rather short span of time. Now, we also have information about Judge James Boasberg. Now, you remember Judge James Boasberg is working on the D.C. Circuit Court. He absolutely hates President Trump, and since the very beginning of the administration, he's been working to stop President Trump being able to deport aliens that have entered our country, sending them back to their nation of origin. This is the same judge who demanded that a deportation flight that was on its way to El Salvador to house illegal aliens at the Secot Supermax prison be returned to the United States. Of course, that shit didn't happen, but it didn't stop it from playing out in the courts. Well, the appeals court has just given a final smackdown to Judge James Boasberg. They're saying that his intrusive criminal contempt investigation for the case that I just mentioned of President Trump and his institution of the Alien Enemies Act must end. Judge James Boasberg is not attempting to uphold the law. He is acting as a judicial activist, somebody who is merely in his position to attempt to thwart the Trump agenda and stop him from making America great again. So this decision from the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals came earlier today. There was a vote of 2-1 to end Boasberg's criminal contempt inquiry into a number of DOJ officials at President Trump's DOJ and in regard to the invocation of that Alien Enemies Act. Now, of course, this is a 3-judge panel, and they've ordered Judge Boasberg to end this intrusive contempt probe. Judge Rao is a Trump appointee. Judge Walker is a Trump appointee, and they are the ones who voted in favor of Boasberg ending this employee. Judge Childs, of course, the dissenting voice, was a Biden appointee. Now, this all began last March when Boasberg granted a temporary restraining order to stop the administration from deporting thousands of Venezuelan nationals who were believed to be members of the dangerous transnational criminal organization Tren de Aragua, of course, under the Alien Enemies Act. Now, Boasberg threatened to hold officials within Trump's DOJ in contempt for not bringing some of those vicious killers back, people who have criminal records, people who are known criminals, people who are rapists, people who have sick mental problems, people who have gang tattoos. Their affiliation is well known. Judge Boasberg said he found probable cause to hold administration officials in criminal contempt of court for defying this order to turn that plane around mid-air and bring back those dangerous Venezuelan gang members. In a 46-page opinion at the time, Boasberg said the administration showed willful defiance that amounts to criminal contempt. In December, Boasberg made it clear he was not going to back off. This was his plan to institute criminal contempt hearings. He threatened to pierce through the attorney-client privilege in his order by denying the government's motion to reconsider. And then last year, we had a 3-judge panel on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals temporarily halt the contempt hearings. And now, finally, we have the ultimate dispensation. Now, Judge Childs would have denied the motion for an administrative stay, and Boasberg recently took yet another step towards contempt prosecution after he revived his original contempt inquiry against President Trump and the deportations under the Alien Enemies Act. Now, the Justice Department has recently disclosed that DHS Secretary Kristi Noem greenlit the deportation flights in March, despite Boasberg's emergency order, because she was the Secretary of Homeland Security, and Judge Boasberg is merely an unelected bureaucrat. Boasberg has no power over the executive branch. However, Judge Boasberg believes he is the God Almighty of the D.C. Circuit. All the more reason we need to get rid of the D.C. Circuit. Thank you very much to Warrior Mima, who says, for those in the chat asking for the Give, Send, Go for Sherry, here's the link. And yes, please continue to share that out throughout the show. Filter Dog 1, thank you for the gold pills. Pete Quest, thank you for the cookie and another cookie. And Moonbaby0437 says, thanks for the news, Zach. Thank you for that. I do appreciate it. All right. Now, we also have some other news coming out of the Department of Justice. We have learned recently of a series of firings that have taken place at the hands of Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. I'm sure everyone here remembers how the Biden regime weaponized the enforcement of the FACE Act. They used that to infringe upon the rights of pro-life activists. They created a dragnet amongst pro-abortion groups so that they could squash protests and target prosecutions and dole out far harsher prison sentences to people who violated or opposed abortion rather than those who supported it. Now, the Biden DOJ at face value violated the rights of Americans through their biased enforcement of this FACE Act. And through that act, though that act was supposed to protect both pro-life and pro-choice facilities, the Biden DOJ provided extensive support to abortion clinics only. They completely ignored and downplayed vandalism and attacks against pregnancy resource centers. So Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche ordered several corrective actions after reviewing the findings of the Weaponization Working Group. Isn't that funny? I thought that the mainstream media and a number of right-wing influencers told us that the Weaponization Working Group had been completely disbanded. Of course, I didn't believe that to be the case because after that announcement came out, Todd Blanche and Eagle Ed Martin were photographed together in his office and everything was hunky-dory. Todd Blanche said this department will not tolerate a two-tiered system of justice. No department should conduct selective prosecution based on beliefs. The weaponization that happened under the Biden regime will not happen again, and we restore integrity to our prosecutorial system. So these are the conclusions from this report. The Biden DOJ closely collaborated with pro-abortion groups like the National Abortion Federation, Planned Parenthood, and Feminist Majority Foundation so that they could track pro-life activists' First Amendment activity. Pro-abortion groups gained internal information from the Department of Justice and pushed targets for arrest and prosecution against their rivals. Pro-choice groups also compiled evidence and dossiers that ultimately gave rise to search warrants and charges. They were essentially acting as a private police and investigative force, handing their information over to the Department of Justice, and then Joe Biden's government acted on it. Biden-era prosecutors went so far as to ask pro-abortion groups about pro-life individuals' travel and their constitutionally protected advocacy. Prosecutors for Biden's DOJ also engaged in inappropriate conduct with comments and knowingly withheld evidence that defense counsel requested. That is called exculpatory information. It's called a Brady violation, and it's very illegal. The Biden DOJ also helped a pro-abortion group secure funding, and there was no record of ethics approval permitting any such advocacy on their behalf. Finally, the Biden DOJ also pursued significantly harsher sentences for pro-life defendants rather than pro-abortion defendants. The average pro-life defendant got 26.8 months in prison compared to 12.3 months in prison for pro-abortion defendants. Now, what's even worse, Todd Blanche also admitted that one of the reasons they were able to get this information and finalize this investigation is because they actually found internal emails from within the Department of Justice. These prosecutors were regularly communicating using official channels with non-governmental organizations, with private nonprofit organizations that were working to put these pro-life advocates in prison for as long as they could. Absolutely disgusting.
I do, and I disagree not because it's just my opinion. I disagree because of the work that we did over the past year at the department, understanding what happened that led to these completely inappropriate results. And prosecutors have a big say in sentencings in the federal system. The judge ultimately imposes sentence, but what we saw is prosecutors arguing for really harsh sentences, inconsistent with what they should have been doing and inconsistent with what they were arguing when it was exactly the opposite. And we saw internal emails, internal correspondence, which is now part of the report, where Department of Justice prosecutors are working hand in hand with NGOs and nonprofits to target and go after pro-life individuals who were not breaking the law. Okay, and I'll tell you what, there's no emails in my inbox from NGOs telling me what to do, and it's disappointing. And look, I hope the American people can see the work that we did over the past year, trying to understand what happened. But once they see it, I think folks will be frustrated and disappointed. I do.
Yeah, I think that's an understatement. People are already frustrated and disappointed, but I hope that Spud Hill is here today to see that yes, there actually is accountability actually is being brought. And of course, accountability looks different to every single person. And of course, some people want accountability to be seen and visible for certain individuals rather than others. They would rather see one person get in trouble before they see somebody else get in trouble. However, what we're looking at here is very similar in my estimation to what we're seeing with the grand conspiracy investigation. All of these crimes are not disconnected from each other. They are all part of a larger pattern of abuse, an abuse of a criminal government establishment that sought to withhold your rights and to essentially withdraw your ability to even have any rights. Ultimately, at the end of the day, these patterns of abuse are being fanned out and they are connecting to larger and larger groups. And I would imagine that we are probably going to see some actions taken against the non-governmental organizations and pro-choice groups that were working directly with the DOJ. We simply haven't seen it announced yet. So let me also say thank you to Lee Walden. He says, Zach, your perception of priorities for solutions for America, your statement was judges must be resolved. I don't know that I said judges must be resolved, but I'm in the same mind. I may see these sins should suffer the same fate as the criminal X2 Gitmo them. Certainly, judges need to be removed. Congress needs to develop a spine because they're the only ones that can hold these judges accountable. Judge James Boasberg should have been impeached long ago. He should have been removed from the bench, and the entire D.C. Circuit needs to be removed as a district. Congress has the power to defund that district and to send it on its way. The district is not large enough to give anybody receiving a criminal charge there a fair trial. The jury pool is not large enough. We saw it time and time again with the January 6 cases, and we've seen it time and time again as the federal government has attempted to bring charges against people who have clearly committed illegal acts inside the district. Based upon that jury pool, the fact that training has gone on to teach people how not to convict people, how to ask questions so they can get hung juries. The system is rigged. Yet again, the system is rigged, and you can't operate inside a rigged system. The only thing you can do to a rigged system is dismantle it, and that's what I think we need to do with that. All right. Now, we also have a statement from Harmeet Dillon confirming that the activists who attacked Savannah Hernandez are, in fact, being investigated for federal charges because these were civil rights violations on top of being physical and assault violations. So let's hear from Harmeet Dillon on this.
United States Assistant Attorney for Attorney General for Civil Rights, Harmeet Dillon. Great to have you back on, ma'am. This is incredible that we're actually having to have this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it's all too familiar for me. I've been fighting for journalists under this kind of attack for, close to a decade now, representing journalist Andy Ngo several years ago in an Antifa attack in Portland, Oregon. Mm-hmm. And since then, we've seen countless incidents like this. And, very concerning what happened to this young lady, this reporter. And I've been in touch with her team, and, we have an open investigation, so I can't get into any details. Sure. But my office is actively involved in investigating what happened and seeing whether there are federal charges that can be brought. Of course, FBI and potentially Homeland Security investigators also do their legwork and investigation. We analyze the legal claims. And so we're going to gather all the evidence. But one of the individuals seen there in that mob is somebody who I've already had indicted for the attack on City's Church in St. Paul. That's William.
That was odd. There was some other audio feed that was bleeding in. Maybe it was somebody in the production booth.
Kelly, he's out on bond. This judge has refused to keep him in custody, although we believe he's a dangerous person who's done this type of attack in other cities, including here in the District of Columbia, allegedly. So, there's only so much the Department of Justice can do when judges refuse to keep communities safe.
And again, we come back to the problem with judges, which is, and Lee says, I believe your statement was from the panel on GART. Okay, and I said so much at GART, I don't even remember what I said. But yes, again, this is why the only responsible thing to do is to pass legislation to hold these judges criminally accountable for allowing illegals, for allowing criminals to get back out on the streets and to commit additional acts of violence and persecution against average, everyday citizens. So I certainly hope that they actually charge this family with a hate crime, because as I showed you yesterday, this woman, the mother here, invoked race. And so if those hate crimes are going to be on the books, then we need to actually use them, and we need to use them against whomever it is that commits those crimes. So other than that, let's just get rid of them. Okay, now, fascinating things happening in California as a result of Nick Shirley's investigations and the investigations of many others, including Bill Asaley and the new anti-fraud task force. The Attorney General of California, who's also running for governor right now, Rob Bonta, was finally forced to take action and to charge dozens of criminals who were defrauding Medicare, Medicaid, and a whole host of other systems. But now, rather than continuing to address the issue of fraud at scale in the state of California, California is in fact attempting to criminalize the actions that led to these people being exposed. California Democrats are now trying to pass something called the Stop Nick Shirley Act. This act would quite literally criminalize investigative journalism, and it would then shield immigrant services fraud from being scrutinized. This is absolutely on brand for California, but the California Assembly Judiciary Committee voted 11-2 to advance AB 2624, again called the Stop Nick Shirley Act. It is insane. It's a bill designed to create a system that will make it illegal for brave citizen journalists like Nick Shirley, like James O'Keefe and O'Keefe Media Group, like Muckraker, like Cam Higbee, like so many others, from exposing the rampant fraud that is currently bleeding American taxpayers dry at these immigrant service centers. This is quite literally an all-out assault on the First Amendment. Whether or not you are a journalist, you as a taxpayer have the right to determine where your money is going. And if you expose people for breaking the law, you should not be penalized for it. Now, the bill was authored by a far-left assemblywoman who just happens to be the wife of Rob Bonta, Mia Bonta, and it would slap investigative reporters with massive civil sanctions. It starts at $4,000 minimum if a fraudster from one of these so-called immigrant service centers decides they don't want to be caught on camera while they're committing crimes. So penalizing free speech, penalizing the freedom to film, penalizing freedom of movement, penalizing spreading the truth. Anyways, as a result of this bill, if it is passed, that crook can then run to the court. They can get an injunction, which would then ban that specific journalist from filming them or exposing them on camera, and it would last for up to 4 years. If that journalist refuses to take down the original video from whatever platform it's posted on, the damages become treble, which is triple damages, $12,000, just for reporting the truth and for exposing the crimes of a grifter. In the worst cases, if the journalist is accused of doxing or creating a so-called imminent threat, which is language they've been using for quite some time, then the fines themselves could start at $10,000, and then obviously if it goes triple, it's going to be $30,000. Now, the bill is going to classify legitimate investigative journalism as harassment. only when it targets these so-called immigrant service centers. These are places like the Quality Leering Center, the Los Angeles Hospice Network, where they were teaching people how to start their own hospice centers so that they could just get a list of Medicaid numbers and start billing. The exact same places that Nick Shirley has been exposing. If these Democrats do get away with this, then it will quite literally codify and wash away any possibility of these people being exposed. We would then have a codified system of acceptable fraud in the state of California. Now, California State Assembly member Carl DeMaio is among those members who are raising concerns about this legislation. He says that this represents a dangerous escalation in government efforts to control investigative reporting. He slammed the Democrats for voting to advance this controversial new law, looking to silence citizen journalists and shield taxpayer-funded organizations from any type of public scrutiny. DeMaio has gone as far as dubbing AB 2624 as the Stop Nick Shirley Act. Now, the protection of immigrant organizations from so-called threats of violence is the underlying rationale they give, when in fact this legislation would apply to any left-wing group that claims to provide any services to legal or illegal immigrants. So obviously, Quality Leering Daycare Center would be covered. Any of those medical centers would be covered. Any of the very, very numerous fraudulent businesses that you've seen exposed in the last several months would all be covered. Now, during a recent committee hearing, DeMaio directly confronted Mia Bonta over language that would allow individuals affiliated with certain organizations to demand the removal of video recordings, even if taken in public, and it would even impose costly financial penalties. DeMaio warned the bill would be used to block investigative reporting, intimidate journalists, watchdog groups, and members of the public who are simply documenting wrongdoing. He says California Democrats are trying to intimidate citizen watchdog journalists and protect waste and fraud happening in the far left-wing NGOs. Instead of fixing the fraud problems being uncovered, Sacramento politicians are trying to shut down the people exposing them. Now, of course, this is the same state where currently they have a building to nowhere, billions of dollars, no idea exactly how much money has been spent on this new government building because they won't tell anybody, they won't release it to the public. It's a lot like the multi-billion-dollar train to nowhere that they have in California, or the bridge, the animal wildlife crossing bridge that they're building in California, which by my estimation is at least 10 times the cost of what it would be to build it anywhere else in the United States. These things do not take decades to build. If you have a system that is operating correctly, you're going to be able to get professionals together, build a bridge, cover it with dirt, wildflowers, and grass, and then you can move on to the next one. California, however, has like $100 million invested in one bridge that is still not built yet. Very similar to what I just described with the new government building and, of course, the train to nowhere. So regardless of that fact, I don't think that anybody is going to stop exposing these things, and it may require California to attempt to actually bring charges against real journalists who are merely doing their job for the federal government to step in. Lee Walden says, "What's nuts is both my daughter and son have been based. Daughter, your age, is very smart as well. Son, 10 years younger. Unfortunately, he got blackpilled. Heartbreaking, trying to share you and Badlands." Well, I hope that he enjoys it. And yeah, if he doesn't want to be blackpilled, I think tuning into my show is a great place to start. And of course, Lee Walden, if you're out there, son, your dad is Red Pill News royalty. He's always out there in the chat. So hopefully you get a chance to come hang out with us as well. All right. Now, speaking of O'Keefe Media Group, and wouldn't you know it, this is a story taking place in California, Los Angeles, to be specific. It appears that O'Keefe Media Group was able to get an officer, financial officer, from the Los Angeles Housing Department on the record who talks about admitting witnessing fraud. Not just fraud, but embezzlement. Embezzlement that directly benefits the current mayor, Karen Bass, and it allows her to replenish her re-election funds. Now, Donald Byers is the man in question, and he is a finance development officer for Los Angeles Housing Department, and he's the one who admitted to witnessing multiple instances of fraud. How much fraud? Well, he says that $10 to $20 million are going directly into people's pockets and that homeless developers are embezzling money. We know this to be a fact because, of course, U.S. Attorney for Los Angeles, Bill Asaley, has recently indicted and charged multiple people who were taking funds that were earmarked for homeless people. And instead of building the projects that they received the money for, of course, they just enriched themselves. They bought cars, they bought houses, they went to fancy parties in other countries. Maybe they bought a private jet. Maybe they just spent it on hookers and blow. Who knows? Now, Byers also said that his superiors simply look the other way. That way they can help corrupt Democrat Mayor Karen Bass maintain those reelection funds. Now, he actually has attempted to report this, which is, of course, something that I did not expect. I thought that he was just going to say, well, it happens and there's nothing we can do about it. However, he has in times in the past admitted to attempting to report the fraud, and he said nothing happens. He said accountability is avoided. Despite years-long delays on projects, funding continues to flow, even when, by his own admission, officials are failing. Billions get poured into these homeless programs. The money goes into people's pockets. People stay homeless. And we have what we've called before the homeless industrial complex. And Byers says at this point, I'm just covering myself. I have a couple of developers doing really sketchy stuff. My project was with a developer called CRCD Marcella Gardens. We, meaning the city of LA, can't figure out where all the money is going. Well, it's going into people's pockets, Byers said. If they, the LA Housing Department, were to call out the people, the developers, contacting Karen Bass's office, she might not get enough money for re-election or for what she needs to have done. For whatever reason, the LAHSA gets allocated a ton of money, but they, the LAHSA, don't really have a whole lot to show for it, he said. Let's take a listen. I think we'd benefit from hearing it directly from Donald's own mouth.
Real estate's a very easy industry to skim money off the top of. You can do a lot of illegal stuff if you do with it in real estate, and no one's going to follow behind. I have a couple of developers that are just doing really sketchy stuff. If there's a project with a lot of money involved in it, someone's going to try to steal something. I mean, we can't figure out where all the money is going.
A finance development officer in the Los Angeles Housing Department reveals tens of millions of dollars worth of fraud throughout low-income housing contracts.
LAHSA, for example, LAHSA is the LA Homelessness Services Department. For whatever reason, they get allocated a ton of money, but they don't really have a whole lot to show for it.
Including LAHSA, the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, which has been failing audit deadlines. As
look at that, it's Savannah Hernandez.
Reported in James O'Keefe's recent expose.
They don't have a good track record. They're supposed to have a quota they're supposed to hit. They get maybe 10% of that quota in a year. It's just very, very, very low.
Donald Byers even acknowledges that the tens of millions of taxpayer dollars going to LAHSA is simply going into people's pockets.
So they were stealing the money?
Most likely it's some form of embezzlement.
Where do you think the money is going?
People's pockets.
All part of a complex web of political relationships in which those in charge look the other way so that Karen Bass can, quote, get enough money for re-election.
So let's be clear how that money for re-election is getting into Karen Bass's pockets. So these large developers are given these contracts. The money flows, probably from federal sources, into their bank accounts. They, of course, present a development plan saying that they're going to do this or that. There's probably a couple of them. They bid against each other. They promise ultimately to support Karen Bass in her re-election campaign. They get all that money. Karen Bass gets a fat check. And if Karen Bass or the city of Los Angeles were to put pressure on those developers and say, why are you not delivering? Of course, the money is going to stop flowing. It's also probable to suggest that at least some of the money, if not all the money, that ends up going back to those politicians probably originated from the original funding source.
I don't know if the team can do anything because it's a relationship business. And I mean, if she were to call out the people that are calling Karen Bass's office, Karen Bass and I might not get, enough money for a re-election. People don't want to rock the boat.
All the finance officer can do is raise a red flag, which he knows will be ignored, just to, quote, cover his ass.
And have you ever caught any embezzlement while you were overseeing? And have you
I've reported it. I've brought it up to people that are very aware of it, and I've already raised a red flag.
My God.
At this point, it's just me covering my ass, so it's all that I can do. Have you done journalism before?
No.
You're a good investigator. Sorry, continue.
Am I?
Yeah. You're like getting down to like the roots of the problem.
Low-income housing fraud in Los Angeles. So this is an 11-minute report. As I always like to do, I will watch the introduction of these investigations with you guys, and then I encourage you, of course, to head on over to O'Keefe Media Group and the Citizen Journalism Foundation to watch it on their channel and see the entirety of the investigation. I was having some difficulty there at first determining whether or not Donald Byers had come forward to O'Keefe Media Group with the intention of revealing all of this stuff. But you can tell there from the end statement where, are you a journalist? She's like, no. It's obvious that he was thinking he was on a date. It's another honeypot operation, as they so often are. BDR1776 says, thanks for all the good, honest news. Thank you so much, BDR1776. Appreciate you, buddy. All right, so nothing shocking coming out of California. Fraud, waste, abuse, and criminal actions. Now, hopefully, something can be done about this. Let's hope that Bill Asaley is going to see this report. I would imagine they must. I mean, this is something perfect for the anti-fraud task force, and considering the fact that we know they're operating in California right now. Keep going, guys. Keep looking. Do not stop. All right, so yesterday, we learned that Eric Swalwell was leaving Congress. Also announced yesterday leaving Congress was embattled Representative Tony Gonzalez, the man who cheated on his wife with one of his staffers, and then she set herself on fire. That's the official story. For all we know, she could have been set on fire by somebody. However, she did live after the immolation, and it appears that she said she didn't want to die. Her husband says that, he believes that she did it. However, he believes she did it because of Tony Gonzalez. Now, one of the things we had initially reported was that her husband began having a relationship with her best friend. After he learned that she and Tony Gonzalez were having an affair, he took their child and he left. That appears to have been a rumor that was started by Tony Gonzalez and his camp. And the reason they did that is because her best friend was a gay man. And he essentially started a rumor, a disgusting rumor about the now widower of the woman that Tony Gonzalez had brought into an illicit extramarital affair. Great big piece of shit. Tony Gonzalez, of course, is the man who just lost his primary challenge to my man, Brandon Herrera, the AK guy. Brandon Herrera is most likely going to win this race. It is a heavily Republican district. And Brandon Herrera also got a lot of press as a result of Tony Gonzalez's sins being brought back up. He was forced to drop out of the runoff race, and Brandon is going to be the only person on the ballot. So now Tony Gonzalez had his resignation statement read on the floor of Congress. That means he's done, and this district in Texas no longer has representation until either a special election is called. Maybe it's going to be Brandon Herrera. Maybe Brandon Herrera will be appointed by the governor. I'm not exactly certain how they do it in Texas, but let's listen to Tony Gonzalez's resignation statement.
The Honorable, the Speaker, House of Representatives, sir. Enclosed is my resignation letter to Texas Governor Greg Abbott, effective April 14, 2026 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It has been my privilege to serve the residents of Texas's 23rd Congressional District. Signed sincerely, Tony Gonzalez, Member of Congress.
All right. Tony's done. Tony is no longer a member of Congress. Deplorable Laura over on Pilled wants to know, Zach, have you ever heard of the BOGO sphere, the flying objects recovered in BOGO, Colombia in 2025? I have, and it's something that I've been following for, basically since the beginning. It's something that's on my list to do for Baseless Conspiracies because I am highly interested in it. I've heard conflicting things about it. And so I didn't think that I had enough information to present something in an entire show that would be comprehensive and, get anywhere close to the heart of it. But the Boogosphere is a pretty cool story, and it's definitely something that I'm interested in. All right, now, Eric Swalwell also had his resignation letter read on the floor of Congress today. That means he also is no longer a representative for California. But before we hear Eric Swalwell's resignation, I thought that it would be cute to go back and watch a Eric Swalwell campaign ad that he released on his Instagram account with his wife, Brittany Swalwell, as they walk on the boardwalk somewhere in California. This ad has not aged particularly well. And yes, there is a bit of schadenfreude here. I do at times enjoy the suffering of others when it comes to people like Eric Swalwell. I will admit it. I am a human, and yes, I am prone to moments of sin and imperfection. But all I can do is ask for God's forgiveness after I watch this and revel in his anxiety and pain.
Do you ever think I'd run for governor?
Absolutely not.
Did you think I could be governor?
Didn't cross my mind.
Appreciate that confidence.
What has surprised you the most that you're hearing from people?
I would say just how proud everyone is in every part of the state to be Californian. Like almost like you got to be crazy to live anywhere else, but also how scared people are, like really scared.
Yeah, I'm scared.
But what I see our state is people are optimistic and there's a way for us to get through it.
I think you just got my endorsement.
You ready to do like a public endorsement video?
I don't think you need mine. You have Adam's shift.
So what do you think voters should know about me besides what they, only seen on TV?
That you're a really great dad. You're a really good husband. I think the kids and I truly can count on you for anything. And if I gave you the choice, I'm not sure if you would choose to be governor of California or have the 49ers win the Super Bowl.
49ers. Governor. Definitely being governor of California and making a place where when we retire, it's a place where our kids and everyone's kids can afford to live.
You're going to be a great governor.
Thanks.
Oh, no, he won't. He'll never be governor. Eric Swalwell will never hold elected office again. Looks like somebody over in the YouTube chat must not have ever seen the show, wanting to know why I'm not talking about Republican sexual predators in Congress. Obviously, you must not have ever seen my show because it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican. I am going to expose your ass just as completely. Just as I opened this segment talking about a Republican member of Congress who had his own sexual scandal, victimizing a innocent, perhaps naive young staffer and using his power to seduce her and steal her away from her family, ultimately ending in her death by fire. Not the best way to go out. I would encourage you to stick around because we are definitely going to be talking about a couple of Republicans today. But first, we do have to really dive in a little bit deeper on Eric Swalwell because the story is not over. Please allow me to play for you Eric Swalwell's resignation letter, which was read shortly after Representative Tony Gonzalez's.
House of Representatives, sir. I am deeply sorry to my family, staff, and constituents for mistakes in judgment I've made in my past. I will fight the serious false allegations made against me. However, I must take responsibility and ownership for the mistakes I did make. I am aware of efforts to bring an immediate expulsion vote against me and other members. Expelling anyone in Congress without due process within days of an allegation being made is wrong. But it's also wrong for my constituents to have me distracted from my duties. Therefore, I plan to resign my seat in Congress effective at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on April 14th, 2026.
And by the way, that time has since passed. Eric Swalwell, done.
I will work with my staff in the coming days to ensure they are able, in my absence, to serve the needs of the good people of the 14th Congressional District. Signed sincerely, Eric Swalwell.
All right.
House of Representatives. Sir.
Good riddance to bad rubbish. Now, who's next? Martin Shkreli, the pharma bro, who was the first to release that video of Eric Swalwell pawing all over that sex worker in some unknown location. Might I add, with a man sitting directly in front of him, which people have suggested is Arizona Senator Ruben Gallego, a man who's been self-identified as one of Eric Swalwell's best friends. We'll talk about that more a little bit later. But Martin Shkreli appears to be picking his next victim. He shares Eric Swalwell's resignation letter posted on X yesterday, and he says, "To all House Dems, this can happen to you easily. I'ma tell you one time, don't fuck with me. Ro Khanna, you fucked with me. That's against the aforementioned rules, so you next. Everyone has a secret, a vice, a mistake, but not everyone has a determined enemy. Tread carefully." Now, if Martin Shkreli has information about any member of Congress, I encourage him to come forward with it. I agree with him. Yes, basically every single member of Congress has a secret. They have a vice. They've made a mistake. They are probably being blackmailed by someone. And I don't believe that ends with political parties. Most oftentimes, a lot of the people serving in Congress may have an R or a D next to their name, but the truth of the matter is they're a member of the Uniparty. They are there to represent themselves, their own interests, and quite often the interests of their political donors. Unfortunately, we don't have enough good men and women in Congress. And even oftentimes, some of those that speak rather loudly, speaking out about believing all women, those people are the ones that we need to look at the clearest. I don't think, however, that Anna Paulina Luna is one of them. Now, you might remember yesterday, Anna Paulina Luna said that in the next 24 hours, more disgusting information about Eric Swalwell was going to be released. Well, she released some of that information last night. This is that minor problem that I mentioned in the introduction to the show. And when I say minor, I mean underage. It turns out that Anna Paulina Luna has determined that one of those people in that video, seemingly the person who was actually taking the video, is likely to be a minor person. That's right. This is someone under the age of 18. We don't know if it's a man. We don't know if it's a woman. Of course, if they're still underage, then that means they're a boy or a girl. But let's take a listen. First of all, Anna Paulina Luna gave the Martin Shkreli video to a forensics expert, or it was given to a forensics expert, and they were able to determine that, yes, the video is authentic. It is not artificially intelligently generated. It's not AI. It really is a video of Eric Swalwell, that sex worker, another sex worker in the back that I showed you guys yesterday, some big-breasted blonde woman who clearly did not want to be on camera, and then whomever that gentleman was sitting across from Eric Swalwell and that sex worker. Looked like there could have even been another person on the bed, but certainly there was an individual using their camera to film the entire thing. Let's take a listen to Anna Paulina Luna drop the news about this minor person.
Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna is on the Oversight Committee, and she joins us now. All right, Congressman, what was Swalwell like in Congress? Did he have a rep?
Yeah, he did have a reputation. And as you know, Jesse, I was actually the member of Congress that wrote the expulsion resolution for him. And I was ready to call it up and did tell him that if he did not resign by tomorrow, that it would be filed. And we did have the votes to expel him from Congress. So what I will say is that many people on the Hill knew about this. Many reporters have come forward, even in talking to me, saying that they had heard stories about this. But I do think that he has serious criminal problems on his hand. And I do think that he might end up in jail, Jesse. And if I could just share with you for a moment, not only did I receive forensic reporting showing that, you know, that infamous video of him in the hotel room was indeed him. It was not AI generated. But I'm also being told that, more stuff is going to be dropping in the next 24 hours. And then also potentially the individual that recorded that video in that hotel room, Jesse, was a female and she was underage.
Ah, a female and she was underage. So then, of course, the next question is, that underage female, how did she come to find herself in what appeared to be a hotel room with Eric Swalwell and a pack of hookers? Was that young woman being trafficked? Was she there at Eric Swalwell's request. Who knows? But even more than that, after Anna Paulina Luna dropped that bombshell, this morning she appeared on CNN to let the world know that she is now actually working with the FBI because they are investigating Eric Swalwell's crimes, misdemeanors, and potentially life-altering decisions made with minor persons.
And I look forward to assisting the FBI with information that I have regarding the investigation into former Representative Swalwell.
Can you expand on that, Congresswoman?
Look, there's been a lot of reports you've heard about people knowing information on the Hill, but there was some information brought to my office specifically. I did obtain forensics on that now infamous video in the hotel room. I am hearing that there is an investigative report coming out that he used his campaign funds to pay for that.
Oh! I wish I had a cowbell, like ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling. Good God.
There's also been allegations that potentially the person that filmed that video was potentially a minor. All of these things obviously coming to my office, but I am going to be handing over to the FBI because they are, to my understanding now, asking Mr. Swalwell to come in and talk to them.
Just for context for our viewers, she's referring to a video that CNN has not yet verified, that we're still working to verify, of Swalwell in a hotel room, allegedly with, as you noted, someone in the room whom he was kissing. And there have been various allegations on social media about what was happening there. CNN, again, has not yet verified those.
Yeah, looked to me like Eric Swalwell had paid for a bunch of hookers to come over and hang out with him and his buddy. And it sounds like likely one of those hookers happened to be an underage girl who was being trafficked in some type of prostitution, sex trafficking scheme. Now, just backing up what Anna Paulina Luna said, FBI Director Kash Patel also put Eric Swalwell on blast on X and said Eric Swalwell has maintained that none of the allegations against him are true. And now that he's resigned, we would welcome him to sit down with the FBI and share any information he has. Something tells me Eric Swalwell is going to be doing just that. However, it's not going to be a voluntary interview. Kash goes so far as to say we also encourage and welcome any person with relevant information to any of these matters to speak with us. Door is open to all at FBI, 1-800-CALL-FBI. The door is open. The seal has been broken. And I can only hope that we are going to see a torrent of information coming out about many members of Congress. Again, I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Green Party, or Socialist commie rat. I want every single one of you to be brought to justice. Now, just kind of backing up the fact that Eric Swalwell likes to hang out with hookers, a video was posted on Instagram earlier today and shared by Page 6, and it shows apparently Eric Swalwell aboard a luxury yacht surrounded by dozens of young women. Now, if you don't know, there is something in the sex worker industry, and it's particularly prominent among wealthy people like Eric Swalwell, people with power and influence, to have yachts go out into international waters with women who are paid to be there to have sex with wealthy men. And it's being described by sources as a rotating cast of mostly British and American guests during what insiders called a hush-hush getaway. This act is called yachting. If you ever hear people talk about yachting, it means that they're going on essentially a paid sex cruise. The video was shared by Nick Ritchie on Instagram. I feel like Nick Ritchie used to have like a hardcore gossip website many, many years ago, but he's the CEO of the Warrior Network Agency. Maybe it's a different Nick Ritchie. Anyways, this is a public relations firm that's based in Newport Beach, California. Seems that at one time he actually knew and was friendly with Eric Swalwell. Sources who are familiar with what happened on this trip said that this was a week-long excursion. It was fueled by alcohol, maybe cocaine, who knows? It was chaotic, jet skiing, partying, and a constant flow of rotating guests cycling on and off the vessel. The yacht is reportedly a 200-foot luxury vessel chartered in the French Riviera. It hosted a small group of men alongside numerous young women, many of whom allegedly did not know each other prior to arriving. The attendees were allegedly told to keep Eric Swalwell's presence quiet. So they chartered this boat. Eric Swalwell was invited to come along. I don't know how many of these guys he knew, but he arrived by commercial flight and then joined them by tender on the stunning luxury craft. There were 4 or 5 men aboard that boat, including Eric Swalwell, and again, a group of beautiful young women. According to the source, one of the women, a Brit believed to be in her late teens, appeared to be romantically involved with one of the men in the group, but the 5 or 6 other women, a mix of Brits and Americans, they were a little older, apparently in their 20s. They also seemed otherwise unacquainted with the group of men or with each other. People on the boat were told to keep it hush-hush about Swalwell being on the trip. They were told everything stays on the boat. The Nun Report has just rated the stream. Thank you so much to The Nun Report. If you are new here to the channel, do me a favor, hit that like button. Feel free to subscribe. We do shows daily, Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern. This is Red Pill News. My name is Zak Paine. Getting back into the news about Eric Swalwell being a slimy piece of shit. It didn't seem like he was a politician, said a source familiar with the antics on the boat. More like the president of a frat house. That sounds like Eric Swalwell, doesn't it? So these women, during this excursion, would be shipped back to shore, never to return, and then they would be replaced by new women so that the debauchery could begin anew. Let's go ahead and take a look at the video. Oh, shucks. They're going to make me watch this on Instagram. I can't do that. Okay. So hold on just a second. I think I actually have a, there's a version of it on X that I saw. I can pull up here. Eric Swalwell yacht. Yes, that's how easy it is. Here we go. Okay. And I'm going to turn down the music because I don't know if this is copyrighted on YouTube. It probably is. All right, so he says, my P4P yacht trip with Swally. Now, he also left a comment, which is why I believe they're not friends, if they ever were. He says, leave future governor of California, Eric Swalwell, alone. He is a good guy. And then he says, sarcasm. And this video was taken in July of 2022. Eric looks toasted. And you can see he was wearing a bathrobe. I hear that's how he was throughout the entirety of the trip. And then here are these women dancing for the pleasure of the men. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to turn that music off. And you can see that's a lot of girls. A lot of girls for 4 or 5 men. Everybody takes their pick. And I don't know if these guys paid to be on this yacht or if they just paid to charter the yacht and then they paid like a lump sum to a prostitute service. But that's a hell of a yacht. I've never been on a boat like that. I don't know about you guys. This is weird. I don't know who this guy is, but he puts his phone down over here and then he crawls across the floor and then gets up and runs to the phone and grabs it and then runs away. It's very odd. I don't know what that's about. All right, but Eric Swalwell, okay. Eric Swalwell comes out of this room, and that looks like a bed back in there. So I can't tell if there's a woman in there with him. If I had to guess, I'd suggest that's probably what happened. And look, he's clearly not wearing any clothes underneath that bathrobe. That girl looks familiar. All right. So long, gang. We'll see you on the next one. I'm sure that this is probably something they did on the regular. Obviously, living in California, you have an opportunity to depart on a yacht like that. All right. Now, that is not the end of the news about Eric Swalwell. More Swalwell accusers have come forward. And in this story right here, a Swalwell accuser by the name of Annika Albrecht has revealed herself. She's a new Swalwell accuser. This is her breaking her silence for the very first time, and she is revealing how she luckily escaped the now former Democrat congressman's attempts to seduce her. So the allegations against him were initially reported by the San Francisco Chronicle. In this clip here, she's speaking with CBS's Nancy Cordes, gave that interview earlier today. She's there with a number of other Swalwell accusers. You've got Ali Sammarco, Annika Albrecht, and then the, oh no, that's her. Who is this other woman? Annika Albrecht, well, there's three of them. I'll figure out her name in just a second. Regardless, Albrecht explained that while she was in college, Swalwell offered to stay in touch and mentor her after meeting with her student group in D.C. He's trolling after young women wherever he can get them. Don't worry, guys, it gets worse. Now, that was an incredibly generous offer that I felt lucky to have, she said. Swalwell then created a group chat on Snapchat, where we've already learned he was fond of sending unsolicited pictures of his penis to young women. He put all of the students in, and then he later added Albrecht as a friend on that same message chain. She was confused. She asked the other students if Swalwell had added them as friends as well, and they said no. Even more creepily, she was the only woman at the meeting, which means that all of the boys got to be in the group chat, but they didn't get to be friends with Eric Swalwell. So Swalwell starts out real smooth. He's talking about politics, but then his messages turned seductive and dark. She said ultimately it reached a point where he invited me to a hotel to meet him. She said it was very clear what the connotation was. At that point, I completely stopped responding. Let's take a listen.
Our exclusive CBS News interview with two women who say Democratic...
Actually, this is 5 minutes long. I don't want to do the whole thing. Let's just hear from them briefly.
They told Nancy Cordes why they finally decided to go public. Swalwell denies allegations of sexual misconduct.
The original video, Boston Guy, is 6 seconds long. That's the only portion of that video that's being released. I would imagine we're probably going to see more in the future. Undoubtedly, more video exists. Whether or not Martin Shkreli has that full video or simply that clip from that video, we don't know yet. Hasn't been revealed yet.
But he did suspend his campaign for governor on Sunday. Swalwell
out of here.
What were you afraid of?
Well, at first I thought I was all alone.
Annika Albrecht was still in college when she says she got what she thought was a big break. California Congressman Eric Swalwell offering to stay in touch after meeting with her student group in Washington, D.C.
I want you to remember the student group, because that student group is going to come up again in the future. Now, Miss Albrecht later said that she got lucky. What I keep thinking back to is I'm lucky that I didn't go to that hotel. For me, justice won't be until he can't ever harm another woman ever again, and he's faced the consequences for the woman that he has harmed. Now, I want you to keep that in mind, because the next woman was not so lucky. She actually did find herself in a hotel room with Eric Swalwell, and she tells a harrowing story. Now, this woman is named Lana Drews, and she says her attorney, and it is Lisa Bloom. I know everybody that annoyed the shit out of me too. But I immediately, anytime see Lisa Bloom involved in a situation, I automatically have a sort of, my hackles go up, you shall say. However, this woman is working with authorities, so we'll see what kind of evidence she brings forward. Certainly her story is disturbing. But Lisa Bloom said, I represent a brave Eric Swalwell accuser. Her disturbing story is forthcoming. We call upon him to leave Congress, which, of course, he has now at this time. So Lana Drew's story is that Eric Swalwell drugged her and raped her in 2018. During the rape, he choked her until she passed out. This all happened in a West Hollywood hotel room. She gave a press conference earlier today where she gave an emotional retelling of the events. She said, in 2018, I was living and working as a model in Beverly Hills, and I also owned a fashion software company. I had contact with Eric Swalwell on 3 separate occasions. That's all it took for him to drug and rape her. I knew he was a married man at the time and that his wife was pregnant. He was my friend. On the 3rd occasion, I believe he drugged my drink. Go back to the story I told you yesterday of the other woman who claims Eric Swalwell raped her, who at some point having one drink with Eric Swalwell, lost consciousness, and then woke up alone in his hotel room in the morning, and she knew that there had been sexual activity. I said at that time, it sounds like she got roofied. Well, Lana Drew says that Swalwell drugged her drink and then proceeded to violently rape her. He raped me and choked me, and while he was choking me, I lost consciousness. I thought I died. I did not consent to any sexual activity. While she's retelling the story, she is breaking down and sobbing. I would never have engaged in a consensual sexual encounter with Eric Swalwell. I mean, who would? Let's be honest. Of course, Eric Swalwell continues to deny all allegations against him. It is important to say that. Technically, he's innocent until proven guilty. But as this case continues to expand, undoubtedly, more women are going to come forward. From what I understand, the number of women who are now collectively coming out against Eric Swalwell, it has tripled since the other day when I first initially told you about this. BDR1776, you see that it said my P4P yacht trip with Swalls, is that pay for play? Oh, I was wondering what P4P meant. Pay for play does sound like that would probably be it. Good catch. Lee Walden says, I have been of the belief that the Brunson case, it never got its just due. And yes, the court never bothered to ask the question, what did it expose, lest we forget what the oath stands for? Yes, unfortunately, the Brunson case it really never got its just day in court. Will to push forward says, Zach, I wonder what lines Farticus used to get some moon pie. That's the thing. I think he only used a couple of roofies. I don't know that he actually really said anything that got these women into bed. Seems like all of them, as they're retelling their stories, if they never got into a hotel room with him, then he was just as creepy as he could possibly be. Could one of them be from an Avatar song? I've got something in my front pocket for you. Is that real? Is that a real song? He's going out with a fang without a fang. All right. Now, I would like to next play for you a clip from 10 days ago where Eric Swalwell's now former best friend, Ruben Gallego, recounts just how wonderful of a person Eric Swalwell is. Yes, that's right. That may sound strange to hear, but Eric Swalwell was described as a good person in this clip. Before we do that, I have just a brief message from our friends over here on Rumble. Let me bring that up. You guys, there are not enough F-bombs in the world, so somebody fix that. This is quite literally a jar full of F-bombs. Yeah, you heard that right. It's tiny little F-bombs, though. This is for maybe when words are a bad idea, but the message still needs to be delivered. Someone's getting on your nerves? You can grab one of these F-bombs. Click it on the table, slide it across, done. Drop one on the desk of the person annoying you as you walk by that coworker at work. If they deserve it, boom, F-bomb. No explanation needed. Or skip subtle, just grab a handful, drop them in the lap of whomever is the intended recipient. That's how many F-bombs you're feeling. If your F's to give now are being delivered in bomb form, then this is the place for you. Scan the QR code you see on screen or click the link in the chat and use the code RUMBLE10 for 10% off your entire order at thingsofholding.com. Thingsofholding.com. Use code RUMBLE10 for your jar of F-bombs. Thank you very much. Cyrus the Great says, wait, who provided the underage hooker? I bet that trafficking ring makes Epstein look PG-rated. It's about to go public. Yes, and that was why I suggested that the underage hooker probably came with the other above-age hookers. The girl was probably being trafficked. It makes you wonder whether or not the of-age hookers had been brought up in the same trafficking ring. They started out as underage hookers, and then they just kept hooking after they became 18. All right, so here is Ruben Gallego, 10 days ago, former best friend of Eric Swalwell, talking about just how good of a person Eric Swalwell is and how he's going to win the governorship in California.
Eric Swalwell, a member of Congress, a friend of mine, who's now the front runner for governor in California. And the fact that, from reports we're hearing is that, he's trying to politicize a report that came out years ago that actually clarified and exonerated Eric Swalwell. And now they want to change that so that to benefit just, the president's narrative to try to stop Eric Swalwell from being governor. Why? Because he knows, number one, Eric Swalwell is going to win the governorship of California. Number two, Eric Swalwell is the hardest fighter against Donald Trump. And if Eric Swalwell is governor of California, he's going to have the bully pulpit to go after Donald Trump, unlike any other governor in this country. And they're going to do anything. They're going to corrupt the DOJ. They're going to corrupt investigations. They're going to force people, to give up their careers just for his little petty vendetta. And because he doesn't want someone like Donald Trump doesn't want someone like Eric Swalwell to be able to fight him every day to stop all the corruption that he's causing in this country.
Poor little Ruben Gallego. Well, I want you to take a look at this next story because, of course, people have a memory. The internet is forever. And everybody in the media, in Congress, wanted to know what Ruben Gallego's thoughts were about his best friend, Eric Swalwell. Of course, Ruben spared no time throwing Eric Swalwell under the bus. But more importantly, he also denied that he was the man sitting across from the bed where Eric Swalwell was groping a prostitute. Now, this began yesterday when Gallego started to distance himself from Eric. This was just shortly before Eric had announced his resignation from Congress amid all of these allegations of sexual assault and, of course, creeping on young women there in Congress. He said, "I want to be clear. I had no knowledge of the allegations of assault, harassment, or predatory behavior against Eric Swalwell. Keep that in mind. No knowledge. No knowledge." He said, "I trusted someone who I believed was a friend, but now it is clear that he is not the person I thought I knew." Well, earlier today, after this fifth Swalwell accuser came forward publicly, gave that press conference in Beverly Hills and accused Eric Swalwell of violently raping her at a West Hollywood hotel in 2018 after drugging her, Gallego had had enough. He said, "Eric Swalwell lied to all of us. He lies to the most powerful people in this country, and they trusted him. They trusted him with the most sensitive spots in our government, whether it was a Judiciary Committee, Intel Committee, or impeaching Donald Trump, and that clouded my judgment. My friendship with him, our family's friendship together with my clouded judgment, I was wrong." And then he said, Gallego said that Eric Swalwell led a double life, but then he admitted that he had actually heard rumors of Eric Swalwell being so-called flirty with women. So yesterday, the narrative was, I had no knowledge. Now today, the narrative is, well, I had some knowledge, but I just didn't do anything about it. Let's take a listen. And
Trisha
actually,
Heaton looks great at 67.
we're going to need
Here
to...
is her number one secret. Regular milk?
Let me get past this real quick. Okay. Here we go. Here is Ruben Gallego finally admitting that he actually had heard the rumors about Eric Swalwell being a total creep.
Swalwell have called you his best friend. You have never asked him about any of the rumors that have been swirling around Democratic politics of his inappropriate behavior?
I did. Look, we knew each other differently from everyone else. My family and his family were as close as it gets. Our kids were in baseball camp together. We had dinner together as a family. It was entirely different, I think, what people understand. But when there was rumors going around a couple of weeks ago, not of the full extent whatever in San Francisco Chronicle, I did ask him, and he lied to me. He knew that I just came off a very, very hard campaign for 2 years, where they lied about me and my family for 2 years. He manipulated me to have the same sentiment that I was having back in the day and use as an opportunity to move me to defend him.
A couple days ago.
How did you not know about the allegations? So considering you chaired his presidential campaign, wouldn't some
Excellent question.
Some of those allegations predated when he ran for office?
Again, this man led a double life. He lied to us. He lied to his family, lied to his constituents. Some of the most powerful people in this country. Even before he ran, he was trusted with some positions that normally we would never think someone like this could do if they're leading that double life.
Are you kidding me? I mean, this is Washington, D.C. I don't buy it for a second. There are all kinds of rumors, persistent, ongoing rumors about members of Congress who behave exactly like Eric Swalwell. If there weren't, it wouldn't be necessary to have a multi-million-dollar fund paid for by you and me to pay off the accusers and victims of members of Congress. So, Ruben, your protestations ring hollow, especially after you just admitted that several weeks ago, at a minimum, you approached Eric Swalwell and asked him about these same persistent rumors that were plaguing him and his campaign. I have more to say, but let me finish this segment.
And again, I was manipulated, I was lied to, and everyone else was too.
Yeah, you may have been manipulated, but I also tend to believe you might have participated, because as we showed yesterday in the video of Eric Swalwell with that prostitute on the back, I don't know why they're covering her face up. You can find her on the internet. She's got freaking ads where she's tied up in leather and all that shit. Anyways, and they don't say anything about the woman in the background. Have you guys heard anybody else talking about that woman in the background? I haven't seen anybody clue in on that yet. I mean, it seems like the mainstream media might want to do their job and try to journalism for a little bit, but apparently not. Anyways, Gallego was asked in the same press conference whether or not that was him sitting in that video across from Eric Swalwell and the sex worker. Now, Gallego denies it. I am, however, going to show you some potentially damning information that suggests it might be him. Take a listen.
There was a video online that surfaced of Eric Swalwell making out with a woman sitting next to someone. Was that you sitting next to him?
This is an example of the lies. No, I was not sitting next to him. I was not in the room.
Well, he wasn't sitting next to him, but somebody was definitely sitting across from him.
I don't even know where it happened. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Chris LaCivita and a bunch of other right-wing political operatives are pushing this narrative that somehow I was in that room with Eric Swalwell, and that is an absolute lie.
Congressman.
Okay, well, you heard it from him. He's also the same guy that said Eric was a great guy. He's also the same guy who said he never knew anything about the rumors, but then admitted he knew something about the rumors. So, listen to this. Here, okay. A little bit later in the same press conference, he's asked again about the knowledge of these persistent rumors, and he kind of loses his mind. Take a look. You can see just how uncomfortable he's getting here. I believe this is right after he's asked whether or not that's him in the video.
What were the rumors? It was flirty. That was flirty.
And that was when? About what year was it?
I mean, that was through, we've heard that throughout.
Senator, you just said.
Okay, now this is different from when he said earlier that it was a couple of weeks ago. Here, he just admitted that it was actually a much longer span of time, and he said we, not I, we. Who does that mean? That means congressional leadership. That means the Democrat caucus. That means the rumor mill, the water cooler there in Washington, D.C. I'm just going to play it from the beginning.
What were the rumors?
It was flirty. That was flirty.
And that was when? About what year was it?
I mean, that was through, we've heard that throughout.
Senator, you just said. Thank you so much. I want to clarify because in the beginning,
we'll go back there. Yeah.
In the beginning, you said when you first heard these rumors a few weeks ago, that's when you called him. Then you said you've heard these rumors for years. So which one is it, Senator?
So I heard rumors of him being flirty.
And that wasn't an issue enough for you to not trust him to watch your kids or be close with him?
Because, you hear this, and then when you're close to somebody and you know his wife, you see this. You see that relationship. You know that, it maybe just isn't true.
Have you asked him about it prior to this few weeks?
I asked him about it a few weeks ago when it started coming up online.
Why, when you ask him about
it,
if you're running his campaign, sir?
That she had no idea about circulating about him.
What were the rumors?
Yeah, he looks very, very nervous. And I think he has reason to. Now, actually, now that we have this clip right here, I am going to play you a brief segment of the woman who claims Eric Swalwell drugged and raped her, strangling her until she lost consciousness. I want you to see this because I want you to make your own mind up about whether or not you think she's genuine.
The allegation. She's speaking now in California, Beverly Hills. Let's watch.
In 2018, while I was living and working as a model in Beverly Hills, and I also owned a fashion software company, I had contact with Eric Swalwell on 3 separate occasions after meeting him socially. He offered me connections to further my software company, and I also had an interest in local politics. He invited me to 2 public events. I knew he was married at the time and that his wife was pregnant. He was my friend. On the 3rd occasion, I believe he drugged my drink. I only had 1 glass of wine. We were supposed to go to a political event, and he said he needed to get paperwork from his hotel room. When I arrived at his hotel room, I was already incapacitated, and I couldn't move my arms or my body. He raped me, and he choked me. And while he was choking me, I lost consciousness. And I thought I died. I did not consent to any sexual activity. Although I did not undergo a rape kit at the time, I disclosed the assault to the people closest to me.
Now, that part of the story right there will, of course, become very critical as this investigation continues, because they'll be able to testify as to her emotional state, her state of mind, the consistency of her story. You can see here she appears to be sniffling, but there aren't actual tears that are coming down her face. Of course, that does not necessarily mean that she's lying. Now, as I said at the beginning, the presence of Lisa Bloom always gives me the heebie-jeebies. My hackles automatically come up. But Lisa Bloom does not do work on behalf of Republicans, okay? She is a Democrat, and she has been involved in fake rape cases that were designed to take down President Trump. She was the representative, the lawyer for a woman who had claimed President Trump sexually assaulted her, but then eventually it came out that that woman was totally full of shit. It was it was all a psyop, basically. So if this woman is not telling the truth, then that would mean that this is part of another one of those Democrat psyops. I personally don't see how this would benefit the Democrat Party as a whole, because undoubtedly it's going to lead to more people being exposed, as it already is. We're going to get to that in a moment.
I also recorded these events in my handwriting.
I believe Gloria Allred is Lisa Bloom's mom.
And calendar. The assault and its impact were later documented during my therapy sessions at a sexual assault center.
All right, so again, all of those contemporaneous pieces to the alleged assault are going to become very important as the investigation continues. Now, I want to show you this graphic here because people are sharing it as evidence of Ruben Gallego being present in that room. You can see here, this is the foot of that person who was sitting across from Eric and the sex worker. This, in the left-hand corner, is alleged to be a picture of Ruben Gallego wearing those shoes. This picture is AI, okay? This is not a real picture of Ruben Gallego. However, the pictures on the bottom, on the left, we have a picture, a still from that video. And then on the right, we have a known picture of Ruben Gallego, which is taken, I believe, from like an Instagram reel or something like that. Now, I show these pictures along with this fake picture, number one, to help you guys when using your discernment. A lot of people are seeing this graphic and they're saying, you're cooked, Ruben Gallego. This is you. Those are your shoes. I'm telling you, because I checked it out, that picture in the top left is AI. That is not a real picture of Ruben Gallego. However, we do know that these two pictures on the upper right and the lower left are in fact real stills from the video. And then this picture right here on the right is a real video of Ruben Gallego. So let's zoom in here and take a look and compare the back and side of the face of the man in that video with the back and side of the face of Ruben Gallego. And I'm going to say right off the bat that there does appear to be several points of commonality. You've got this sort of thinning of the hair right back here above the ear in both of these men. The ears themselves, although they are a little bit blurry, they do appear to look rather similar. So does the beard line and also the build of both of these men. Now, the hair is a little bit different. Of course, we don't get a great look at this man on the left here, but the hair on the right, we've already matched it to Ruben Gallego. So I'm going to say that there is maybe an 85% chance that the man in that video could likely be Ruben Gallego. And I think that his anxiety that was very clear in that press conference is likely directly linked to this. So I'm expecting more stuff to come out about Ruben Gallego. I'd also like to take you back to the 2024 election. There was a time when Kari Lake was running for Senate against Ruben Gallego, and she was speaking at a Trump-Vance campaign event. And she spoke about a number of claims that have been made about Ruben Gallego. I covered those claims separately on the show at the time that they had come out. There were repeated reports of Ruben Gallego behaving badly with women, very similar to what we have with Eric Swalwell. And I would say birds of a feather flock together. So it's unlikely to me that Ruben Gallego, an alleged family man who also had a history of bad behavior with women, hanging out with Eric Swalwell, an alleged family man who also had a documented history of bad behavior with women, wouldn't know about their own bad behavior. Now, there is also a woman, I saw the video earlier and I didn't bookmark it, so I don't have it to play, but she's some type of a mainstream media journalist, and she did a expose on Eric Swalwell. It was supposed to be positive. She met him and did an interview with him early on when he announced that he was going to be running for governor. As soon as she posted it on her social media, she was thinking, wow, I've hit the big time. I get to interview the next possible governor of the state of California. She thought it was a great thing. She had only heard good things about Eric Swalwell. But as soon as she posted the video and the interview, her inbox was flooded with tales from women who had known Eric Swalwell, been staffers of Eric Swalwell, had been part of that student group in D.C., and they all told the same story. Some of them were just simply approached, had creepy conversations with Eric Swalwell. Others had actually been claiming that they were sexually assaulted by Eric Swalwell. Some had semi-consensual relations with Eric Swalwell. But the overwhelming theme was that Eric Swalwell had a history of preying on young, vulnerable women. And many of those women came forward and spoke to her. And so now she's essentially made it her life's mission to bring this information forward and to expose Eric Swalwell. Now, I'd also like to play you another short clip of Hakeem Jeffries, the leader of the Democrats in the House of Representatives, as he is questioned about Eric Swalwell. And you'll remember that I pointed out when all of this started coming out, the Democrats that had endorsed Eric Swalwell, they all pulled their endorsements for the governor's race. But not a single one suggested he should relinquish his seat in the U.S. House of Representatives. And that's what these journalists are asking him about.
Did you push Swalwell to resign? Did you push Swalwell to resign?
Member conversations that I've had will remain private.
Why did you call for him publicly to resign, given these allegations?
He's made the right decision.
And what about Phyllis McCormick? Should she resign?
Thank you, everyone.
Remember, Phyllis McCormick is the Democrat rep from Florida who stole $5 million in FEMA and COVID funds and then funneled it into her campaign accounts and into her personal bank account. And she used at least $100,000 to buy a beautiful diamond ring that she would then wear when she was taking photos for her campaign. Now, go back to the statements from Ruben Gallego about not knowing about Eric Swalwell, then learning a couple of weeks ago about Eric Swalwell, then admitting to persistent rumors about Eric Swalwell. And here, Nancy Pelosi is asked about whether or not she had knowledge about Eric Swalwell and his bad behavior. Of course, she claims that she did not, But again, I don't believe that to be true. All right. And I'm going to have to change the view on my screen here. Okay. So this was on C-SPAN, and she was asked if she or any other Democrats had any advanced knowledge of Swalwell's behavior or the things he's being accused of. And she absolutely took issue with that and said, absolutely not. No, I didn't know nothing. Keeping in mind, once again, that Eric Swalwell was a progeny of Nancy Pelosi. He actually said on a podcast several months ago that it was Nancy Pelosi who taught him how to wield power in Congress.
Some Republicans and others are saying that Democrats turned kind of a blind eye, that they knew what he was up to
No,
or
that's
what
not
the
true.
allegations
That is
were.
absolutely positive. And it's true that they may say that, but it is absolutely not
You
true.
had no idea.
None whatsoever. None whatsoever. I had none whatsoever.
What happens in California now? He was in many of the polls, the leading candidate.
Yes, he was.
That's gone. There's an army of candidates out there. And California has this quirky law, because it's ranked primaries, right, where you could end up with 2 Republicans on the ballot.
Well, it is.
How does that?
I agree that it is a quirky law. I do not agree that there'll be 2 Republicans at the top.
Unfortunately for Nancy Pelosi, there likely will be 2 Republicans who end up at the top of the ballot. Before we continue with the sad, sordid saga of Eric Swalwell, I need to bring another message to you guys from our friends at Rumble. They can freeze your accounts, they can shut off your cards, they can lock you out of your own money, and they can do it overnight. Why? Because banks do not protect you. They control you. And this is why real financial freedom starts with ownership. So introducing the Rumble Wallet. It's a non-custodial wallet. It's built for people who refuse to give up control of their money. With Rumble Wallet, you don't just buy digital currency like Bitcoin and Tether. You can also own Tether Gold. That is real gold on the blockchain. And through Tether Gold, you get direct ownership of physical gold bars. Each one of those bars is fully allocated, verifiable by serial number, purity, and weight. It's not paper gold. It's not an IOU. It's real gold without bank vaults, storage fees, or gatekeepers. You can buy it, sell it, or move it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That means even when traditional gold markets are closed, you can get it, you can move it, do whatever you want with it. If you want, Tether Gold can also be redeemed for real physical gold bars. That is pretty powerful. And also, when you support creators on Rumble, you can tip them directly using the Rumble wallet because it's peer-to-peer. It's totally outside of the banking system. There's no permission or middlemen or cancel button. It is your wallet forever. And to find out how to get it, simply go to wallet.rumble.com, use that QR code that you see on screen, or just use the App Store on your device. Thank you so much to Rumble. All right, I saw Automan reboot. Is that like Automan the show? Are they rebooting Automan the show? Yeah, my name is definitely Zach. So anyways, if you're new here, thanks for hanging out. Glad to have you. Now, let me also say thank you very much to G Fontes 119. He says, I'm like 10 minutes behind the live, but I'm willing to bet the yacht was one of several that the Geffen family owns. They may, but the problem is that the Geffen family, well, David Geffen, he's a gay man. So the yachts that he would be pulling out into the ocean probably would be staffed with young cabana boys. And believe me, there is a whole lot of stuff about David Geffen that people may not realize. A lot of deaths that seem to be connected to him. Also, Sabrado says, why was there a third time? If somebody raped me once, they wouldn't get a second chance, and certainly not a third. This doesn't, no. She met him on 3 occasions. It was on the 3rd occasion that he drugged her, took her back to his hotel room, and then raped her. So there was no multiple rapes. From every claim of sexual assault against Eric Swalwell, it appears that when these people were assaulted, that was the last time they saw him. The only case that I've heard of so far that was any different from that was the woman who was drugged and then left in Swalwell's hotel room, woke up to find out she had had sex. She had said that prior to that, she had performed oral sex on Eric Swalwell, but she did that, consensually, but still there's, slimy stuff going on there. All right. Yes. Baseless conspiracy about David Geffen. That's why I'm not going to say too much about it. Maybe I'll do a baseless conspiracy on David Geffen. Also, thank you to Kenzie Fam, who says, testing Rumble Wallet. Thank you very much for testing the Rumble Wallet. I do appreciate it. So yes, that's what predators do. Exactly. That's what predators do. They groom people. They make them think that they're special. They offer to help them in their careers. And then they say, you know, hey, come on over. I'd like to go over some stuff with you in my hotel room. I'm a politician. I'm going to put you into Democrat politics in California. And then he says, have a glass of wine. She has a glass of wine. And then by the time he gets her, he probably timed it perfectly, guys. I mean, somebody who is slipping roofies into drinks of girls, they're going to know exactly how long it's going to take to give them that roofie. And then when they need to have them back into their hotel room, to have them fall back onto the bed and not be able to move their arms or legs. Will to push forward said, Zach, didn't Nancy Pelosi look more Shar-Pei dog breed with the wrinkly face in that video? Is her Botox no longer working? She definitely looks tired. If I had to guess, Nancy Pelosi has probably not gotten much sleep recently because this is clearly a big scandal that is blowing up and is going to encompass a lot more than Eric Swalwell, Representative Tony Gonzalez, Ruben Gallego in the Senate. There are going to be many others. FilterDog1 over on Pilled says, drunk or drugged women do not have agency. Amen. That is absolutely correct. FilterDog also dropped a tweet from real Seth Keshel. Before we move on to the next story, let's go ahead and take a look at what my good buddy Seth Keshel has to say. Yes, Abigail Spanberger. Abigail Spanberger has just signed a law in the state of Virginia to remove your agency when casting a ballot, making elections just that much more fake and gay. So right here, this law, the National Popular Vote Compact, essentially states that Virginia, the state, agrees to award all of their electoral votes to the presidential ticket that receives the popular vote in all 50 states and the District of Columbia. So it doesn't matter if the popular vote in the state of Virginia goes to candidate B. If candidate A gets the popular vote across the country, then Virginia awards their electoral votes to candidate A. This is obviously not very good for people who are interested in their ballot being counted for the candidate of their choice. It doesn't matter, essentially, who you vote for in the state of Virginia. So, yeah, this was just signed into law today, apparently. Let's see. And also, Darla says, turns out Swalwell is as bad as Hunter Biden. Might be worse than Hunter Biden. We don't know. We haven't got more video. And a close race being Epstein. I also heard underage girl claims she had sex with him while his wife was pregnant. So I don't know if maybe you're confusing the two stories, but from what Anna Paulina Luna said, underage girl was the one taking the video in the hotel room. I haven't heard any commentary or testimony from her, but that other woman who says she was drugged and raped by him, definitely this was while his wife was pregnant. So I'm sure we're probably going to be hearing news stories about Eric Swalwell's slimy behavior for the next several weeks. Judy the Lady Pug, thank you for the cookie. Darla also says these judges, along with the perpetrators, need to be held accountable for their public consumption. Absolutely. Filter Dog, thank you for the 217 gold pills. The Tree of Liberty is thirsty, and I can actually absolutely agree with you on that. How can that be lawful? Because they did it, Daniel Becker. It's lawful because it was a law passed by the Virginia State Assembly legislature. I don't know what term they use there. Certainly, if I was a person living in Virginia, I wouldn't want to stick around. All right. Now, I mentioned that there would be others. And it turns out George Santos is making good on his promise yesterday to start talking about what he knows. George Santos said that the House of Representatives previously had a high school page program. Now, they had to shut down this high school page program. No, it shouldn't be locked. Yes, exactly. It's not lawful. It's a de facto law. It's only lawful because they did it. They passed a law and they said, we can do this, and therefore it is so. It's like hand waving and saying, you know, this $100 is now worth $200 and you have to accept it because I said so. So he said, He said that they had to shut down the high school page program because congressmen were sexually abusing young students. Let's take a listen.
Is this going to lead to a big Me Too? Is this going to be like a Harvey Weinstein Me Too, like Hollywood level? Like, is this going to take over Congress? Like, are we going to have like people coming out from all over the place?
You took the words out of my mouth. That's amazing.
Please.
This is the Me Too of Congress. This is the beginning of the end of the sexual predator behavior in Capitol Hill. This is going to be the Harvey Weinsteins of the Bill Cosbys that are going to bring down this generational behavior. Just remember one thing, Benny. You're a very intelligent guy. You've been around. You know this. Remember why the U.S. House of Representatives no longer has the page program. Only the Senate retains it. Because of this behavior. Because young children who would go from their schools to learn from our leaders were literally assaulted by members of Congress. And these are 13, 14, 15-year-olds. That's why the U.S. House of Representatives no longer has the page program.
How many of those 13, 14, and 15-year-olds received big settlements from the multi-million-dollar House Sexual Assault Fund that, again, is paid for by us, along with signing a non-disclosure agreement agreeing to never bring criminal charges against the member of the House of Representatives that sexually assaulted them. Remember, he said 13, 14, 15-year-olds. Yes, Benny Johnson may be a spook, but I'm not listening to Benny Johnson. We're listening to George Santos, who was a member of Congress and who was essentially removed from Congress, probably because he knew too much.
So understanding this is so vital for people to understand why this is a very important moment in time for our youth, for future leaders and generations to come.
Wow. And more women are lawyering up right now against Swalwell. Unbelievable.
Yep. There's one with a press conference today, and there's another one lawyering up as we speak.
Okay, and certainly she will probably be bringing something forward. Now, somebody in the chat said that Benny Johnson allegedly did stuff with kids. Haven't heard that. All I heard was that I believe it was Milo. Milo was making claims against Benny Johnson, essentially saying that he was closeted gay guy, and that when he was a kid, he actually was doing stuff with his pastor. So that may be the story that you're thinking of. I have not specifically heard any claims against Benny Johnson with children, but obviously, if these claims are now being made, they're going to be brought out and we're going to be reporting on it. But until that time, all allegedly and not backed up. All right. Now, I'd also like to remind you of former U.S. Representative Madison Cawthorn. Madison Cawthorn, of course, came forward with a story about the den of iniquity that was Washington, D.C. Oh my gosh, is this Eric Swalwell? Oh my gosh, I think that potential. Oh no, I thought that he had given a statement, but U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro has just posted that 5 women have made serious allegations against Congressman Eric Swalwell. I encourage anyone with credible information or complaints involving similar conduct in the District of Columbia to contact my office's hotline. All right, now let me play for you the clip of Madison Cawthorn. Of course, it was big news, and I covered it here at that time. D.C. cocaine parties. He said that members of Congress were having parties, orgies, and doing cocaine. And it was right after this that they primaried Madison and got him the hell out of Congress.
The sexual perversion that goes on in Washington, I mean, being a young guy in Washington with the average age of probably 60 or 70, and I look at all these people, a lot of them that I've looked up to through my life. I've always paid attention to politics, guys that, then all of a sudden you get invited to, like, well, hey, we're going to have kind of a sexual get-together at one of our homes. You should come. And I'm like, what did you just ask me to come to? Yeah. And then you realize they're asking you to come to an orgy. Yeah. Or the fact that, there's some of the people that are leading on the movement to try and remove, addiction in our country. And then you watch them do, a key bump of cocaine right in front of you. And it's like, wow, this is wild. The sexual...
So, I believed Madison Cawthorn's account at the time that he made these statements. And obviously, Madison Cawthorn became a liability to leadership in Congress. Now, looking at that comment in retrospective, let's hear from Madison Cawthorn today, because obviously he was correct. He was not just talking bullshit. It was not just hearsay. I believe Madison Cawthorn was witness firsthand to this exact same type of behavior. He goes into a little bit more detail about the types of activities that he witnessed.
You know, what's it like? You're in Congress and then you get invited to something like this. You hear about this. What's the reputation of these types of things? How does it start?
Normally, I mean, the way I found that these things start getting taken off the ground is that, you know, it starts out, you're just at maybe a donor dinner or you're getting dinner after a late night of votes. And then, you know, everyone has friends inside of Congress. So you start hanging out with friends and then maybe you're grabbing drinks or you're on the way back to Capitol Hill, you know, or you go heading back to your homes. And then, you know, you start building these relationships. And then, you know, most congressmen like to hang out with other congressmen just because there's so many problems when you hang out with either staffers or there's people with different angles in other parts of the Beltway. And I will tell you, normally the way that I came across this is that people started inviting me saying, hey, well, why don't you come back? And, you know, my wife would love to hang out with you and we could see what could be going on here. And, you know, I think we'd have a really good time if we all got together in this way. And then you just started piecing together and you say, well, wait a minute. What kind of invitation are you inviting me here? This sounds really weird. What do you mean leave my phone at the house? That doesn't make any sense. All of these random things that they're saying. And it becomes very clear that, you know, they're looking... That's the big one is just, hey, you know, check your phone at the door, that kind of thing. And, you know, I had no interest in anything like that. I've got a phenomenal life. You know, I was only 25 years old when I was in Congress. And so that interested me not whatsoever. But, you know, I thought that the majority of people inside of the United States of America were very cognizant of that. And so I came out and talked about it and they tried to destroy me for it. And I'll tell you, there were 16 people that, you know, I really hold responsible for the people that were the architects of trying to take down my political career. And I want you to ask yourselves, out of all the people who notably came out against me or who, you know, sent funds to make sure that I was pushed out of Congress, ask yourself, where are those people now? And I'm very happy that I was able to take the majority of them down, or the majority of them are now out of office or have terrible personal lives at this point. But I will tell you, you know, there are so many people inside of Washington, D.C. that have much worse on them than what's going on inside of this video. And normally it's used so that people can hold this over their head for certain kind of votes. I mean, you know, whether it's a honeypot operation or whatever it is. But
again, blackmail is the currency of Washington, D.C. They co-opt these people if they're not co-opted already. And then once they have the blackmail material on them, they allow them to remain in Congress as long as they continue to vote as they are told. And once they're blackmailed, oftentimes they set them free to do whatever it is that's hiding in their closet. If this is the type of life they would rather lead, they give them carte blanche to do it. This is why we've got so many pedophiles in Congress. This is why pedophiles are so easily co-opted. Because once they're co-opted, once they're blackmailed, and once they're on the record, all it requires to control people is to continue feeding that sick addiction.
In the most circumstances, and this is something that I would tell anybody when they get elected to Congress, is, you know, hey, you are not that funny. You do not just randomly get significantly more attractive. If you are in some normal town in the middle of, you know, good old heartland of America, and three outrageous looking, you know, tens walk up to you and say, hey, we'd like to have a foursome. I promise you are not that funny and you are not that attractive. They are there to hold leverage over you. And that is what's going on. That's what these people get caught up in. And so then this is, you know, what I have seen from a lot of other members of Congress is that once they get caught in these kind of rings of people holding this over their head, they said, well, you know, if this is being held over my head, might as well just go ahead and go out and have a good time. And so then they start willfully going out and doing this. Now, I don't know if normally they're out there trying to, you know, solicit, you know, prostitutes and things like that. I had no experience witnessing anything like that, but I do know that there is a lot of sexual perversion, a lot of people who do not care about the rings they wear on their left hands.
Yeah. A lot of people in Congress are married. They're in relationships, but those relationships, those marriages, they are facades. They call them beards. They do it so that they can appeal to the law-abiding, normal living American citizens. Look at me. I've got a healthy, normal, nuclear family. I'm not going out on the weekends and doing cocaine and having sex with hookers or orgies with other members of Congress. But yes, they actually are. Makes sense to me, too, says, makes me wonder about John Thune actively suppressing the SAVE Act. I don't think there's anyone here who would disagree with you there. Because, of course, the only way that you could stand in the way of legislation like that being passed is if somebody is holding some leverage over your head to make sure that you don't allow it to pass. Fully 90% of America believes that proving your identity as an American citizen and to cast a ballot is simply good business. It doesn't make any sense to have completely free and open election systems where people have no verification or ability to make sure that those casting ballots should lawfully be casting ballots. Okay, I already read that one. No thanks, Joe says, thanks, Zach and Lisa. Good Tuesday, and thanks for all your hard work. God bless and be safe. And I already read that one from Filter Dog. Okay, so next, we are officially done with the sick debauchery in Congress. All I can say is that as the days continue, I expect to see more people being exposed, and I expect to see more people resigning their positions in Congress. Anna Paulina Luna is now actively going after people that she knows to have been recipients of that multi-million-dollar sex assault fund in Congress. I'd also like to give you an update on something that we've talked about here a number of times. Both President Trump and Scott Bessent have hinted at its impending coming. But Scott Bessent says that there is an executive order requiring banks to collect citizenship information in the process. If we have illegal aliens present in the United States of America using the U.S. banking system, receiving loans to purchase houses, it would be the simplest and best opportunity to get rid of them by seizing their property, seizing their homes, seizing their bank accounts, taking that money and putting it into the pockets of American citizens. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said that a proposed executive order would require banks to collect citizenship information, and it's currently in the process. And he said this in an interview with Semaphore. I don't think it's unreasonable, because why don't we have information on who is in the U.S. banking system? I have a place in the UK. They want to know who lives in every apartment, and how do we know that it's not part of a foreign terrorist organization? The draft executive order was first reported on earlier this year, and it would require banking institutions to request additional identification documents from their customers. This would just be the latest in the administration's efforts to crack down on illegal immigration, and I, for one, am fully in favor of it. Semaphore reported back in February that real IDs would not be considered eligible documents under this new documentation requirement because they don't provide proof of citizenship. Now, some Republicans are supporting this, others are not. Others who are not, I would suggest they may be benefiting from illegal aliens having the ability to use our banking system. After the Wall Street Journal reported that banks could begin requiring customers' passports under this new policy, Senator Tom Cotton reposted a letter he sent to Bessent last October. In that letter, he urged the Treasury Department to undertake a comprehensive review of current rules that allow illegal aliens to obtain financial services and access to the U.S. banking system. Access to the American banking system, he said, is a privilege that should be reserved for those who respect our laws and sovereignty. When individuals are allowed to open accounts without verifying legal status, we are permitting illegal aliens to establish financial routes and integrate economically, all while bypassing the legal channels that millions of Americans use properly. White House spokesperson Kush Desai said that told The Hill's partner News Nation in February that media reports about the potential decision were unconfirmed, likely because they just haven't confirmed it yet. Any reporting about potential policymaking has not been officially announced by the White House, would make it baseless speculation. However, a White House official told The Hill on Tuesday that the Trump administration continues to explore ways to protect our banking system from unacceptable credit risks and to ensure the banking system remains available and affordable for all Americans. Get it done as soon as possible. This is definitely something that I would like to see. All right. Now, We are going to wrap it up here with a couple of quick stories. A man who allegedly has been linked to so-called white supremacist movements has now pled guilty to a disturbing series of crimes, including firebombing a non-profit using a napalm-style device and attempting to assist a foreign terrorist organization in Hezbollah. 28-year-old Reagan Darby Prater of Tullahoma, Tennessee, stood before a federal judge in Knoxville and copped to 1 count of arson and 1 count of attempting to provide material support to a foreign terrorist organization. According to the Department of Justice, Prater admitted he drove from his home to the Highlander Research and Education Center in Newmarket, Tennessee. And he entered this guilty plea after he was charged in the U.S. District Court in the Eastern District of Tennessee at Knoxville. Sentencing has been set for September 9th in Knoxville, but he faces up to 20 years in federal prison, along with a host of associated fines, restitution, and a term of supervised release to be served after he is released from federal custody. As part of the agreement, Prater waived indictment by a federal grand jury and agreed to plead guilty to those aforementioned charges. The court documents established that Prater used a so-called sparkler bomb. It's a napalm-based incendiary device ignited by a common sparkler to destroy facilities maintained by the Highlander Center. It's a school for grassroots leaders and social movements in Newmarket, Tennessee. He also admitted he drove from his home to the center, ignited the bomb, destroyed a building, ultimately causing over $1.2 million in damages. And before he detonated the bomb, he spray painted the Iron Guard, the symbol of the Iron Guard, which was a paramilitary arm of the Romanian Nazi Party, in the center of the parking lot. Now, the same symbol was also engraved on a rifle used by the shooter at Christchurch in New Zealand. Prater also admitted that in 2019, he provided material support to Hezbollah, which the United States has recognized as a foreign terrorist organization since 1997. He obtained a document purporting to personally identify 35,000 individuals that were purportedly affiliated with the government of Israel, and he sent it to them and said, start the hunt. All right. And finally, Hillary Clinton has attempted to use her own experience as a diplomat to trash President Trump. There's just one problem. She, of course, was the former Secretary of State, and she possesses 2 skills in an abundance: dishonesty and self-promotion. Hillary Clinton has also admitted to working behind the scenes in what I believe is a violation of the Hatch Act with foreign governments, attempting to undermine efforts to attain peace by the Trump administration. And add to these her lingering, palpable bitterness over her loss to President Donald Trump in 2016 in the presidential election. She appeared on Morning Joe and said, you know, Joe, let me just say this. When I was Secretary of State and beginning the then secret negotiations with Iran to try to reach a nuclear weapons deal to prevent them from ever having a nuclear arsenal, it was a very slow, deliberative process. Needless to say, Hillary Clinton lies every time she opens up her mouth. Now, according to the liberal-leaning Center for Arms Control and Nonproliferation, the most common criticisms of that 2015 Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action she is referring to, the Iran nuclear deal forged under President Barack Obama, it involved the agreement's sunset provisions, which remained in force for only 10 or 15 years, depending on the provision. Now, at best, therefore, that deal she was attempting to make merely delayed the ambitions of Iran. Then, when it was terminated in May of 2018, President Trump cited this act of kicking the can down the road as partial justification for his decision. Secretary Clinton wanted credit for the negotiations that led to that deal. She said, "This is hard work. You don't just show up in Geneva or Islamabad, talk for a bunch of hours and go away. This is hard, disciplined effort that has to go into diplomacy to reach any result." Well, Hillary Clinton's idea of diplomacy is bombing a nation like Libya, who was not openly a threat to the United States of America, who had already joined the world order. The crimes of Gaddafi amounted to attempting to bring water to the continent of Africa and opening his own central bank for the nation of Libya that would be using a gold-backed currency. Of course, Hillary Clinton, in my opinion, wanted to get her hands on all of that gold. So she oversaw the overthrow of Gaddafi, and then she and her stooges were able to successfully steal all of that Libyan gold. And the 60-plus year infrastructure project to bring water to Africa and turn desert land into usable farmland was in an instant destroyed. And now, today, of course, they have open slave markets in the nation of Libya. Truly, truly disgusting. But that, my friends, is Hillary Clinton. All right. Finally, I have one more message from our friends over at Rumble and a new sponsor of the program, the good folks over there at Benson Honey Farms. You guys, in a world full of fake everything, it's getting a lot harder to trust what you put into your body. That's why I'm telling you about Benson Honey Farms' real American honey. It's straight from a small family operation that still does it all the old-fashioned way. Plus, it is pure, it's raw, there's no junk, just honest beekeeping from folks who actually care. Whether you're grabbing a jar for your kitchen or you're stocking up for your crew, you are supporting real Americans and getting honey that you can actually trust. So if you too would like to support them and get probably some of the best honey you're ever going to taste, head on over to bensonhoneyfarms.com right now and use the code REDPILL78 to get 15% off. And make sure you tell them that me, Zak Paine, RedPill78 sent you. Real honey for real patriots. Don't settle for anything less. You can also use the QR code that you see on screen, but most of all, just make sure you use code REDPILL78, get yourself a special deal, and enjoy that Benson Honey Farms honey. And I want to say thank you, especially to the good folks at Benson Honey Farms for reaching out and for wanting to be a sponsor of the program. I think that's totally awesome, and they truly do make awesome, awesome honey. All right, you guys, let's go through the final thank yous. Looks like I am done over there on Rumble. And Filter Dog 1 says, Brad CGZ, new show at 7. Oh my gosh. Okay, Brad must have announced on X his new show. That's awesome. Somebody had just reached out to me today and said that they didn't know what happened to Brad, and I said they should follow him on X to
right now,
get the
over
updates.
20 million Americans in the Affordable Care Act are watching their premiums skyrocket.
Okay, so his new show is going to be on Pilled. I don't know if it's going to be anywhere else. It looks like it is premiering at 7 p.m., which is right now. That would be MAGA versus the world. Tell you what, you guys, on Pilled and on X, I am going to send everybody there in a raid. So you will be able to catch Brad right now, and that will be it for us. All right, you guys, that will be all. Good luck. God bless. I'm going to go ahead and pass out these gold pills, and then I am going to send you guys over to watch Brad's new show. Please tell him that I love and miss him, and tell him that I sent you. I would really appreciate it. Let me first set the raid. Where is... Hold on. I'm trying to find his channel. Okay, here it is. Okay, so he's not live yet. That's why I can't raid him. Well, shucks, I can send you guys over on Rumble, but I will share Brad's channel with you guys from Pilled so that if you don't follow him on Pilled, you can make sure you do. I suggest that everybody follow, the people that I'm telling you about on all of the platforms that they publish on, because that way if something happens on one, like today, because my stream wasn't working over there on Pilled, somebody let me know that it wasn't, and then I was able to go ahead and fix it. Okay, let me try this again. Set the raid. Yeah, I can't raid because he's not live yet. Dang it. Okay. Well, everybody, again, when I'll send you over there on shoot, what is his? Never remember if it's Brad CGZ or if it's Where We Go When We Go All. Let me see. Brad CGZ. Yeah, it is Where We Go When We Go All with spaces. So I am forwarding you guys over on Rumble, and then the good folks over on Pilled, you guys know how to get to Brad's channel. You can go over there and wait, but I just can't send you yet. Okay, we are all done, and hopefully I'll see you guys tomorrow right here, 5 p.m. Another episode of Red Pill News Live. Love you. Appreciate you. Say hello to Brad for me, and I'll see you guys on the flip side. Peace. All right, for those of you who have not yet headed over to Brad's show, let me just remind everybody, all of the sponsors are in the description of this video. Over at onenessdrops.com, there is still all month long that buy one, get one free offer. You head on over to onenessdrops.com/promo/BOGO Red Pill 78. You can get yourself a buy one, get one free on everything they offer. The chlorine dioxide water purification kits, the mullein extract, the soursop extract, the pure DMSO, all of these things, you just add it to your cart. They will automatically send you another one. So you can also go to my other sponsors, MyPillow, mypillow.com. Use the code RP78 to save up to 80% off. My friend Jordan at consciousstrength.net/RP78. You guys will save 10% on all of Jordan's products, the liquid vitamin C, the methylene blue, the collagen, the electrolytes, the green energy, the Shilajit, iodine. Iodine is very important to keep your brain healthy. And of course, my friends over at rncstore.com. Right now, they've got a special offer going on with bundles. And when you use code RedPill78, you will save an additional amount on top of all of their bundle sales right now. You can get the B17 Laetrile, the enzymes, the Pro B15, apricot lotion, apricot oil. You can just get raw apricot seeds. So many different things, so many different sponsors, all in the description of this video. Thank you for being here. And of course, thank you to Kirkstone Metals for sponsoring the program at the beginning. The link to check out their information on their prospectus can be found in the description of this video. Thank you so much to them as well.